Hello once again, everyone. It's Kata Kosman, publisher of Madison's Lumber Reporter, here to give you another one of my usual monthly updates. This time we have U.S. new home sales and house prices for September, which just came out last week. And so as it's been going for most of this year, the data is up. People will remember that this particular data set in the summer was dropping a little bit, and now for September of 2021 has skyrocketed up 14% to 800,000 units of new homes built in September. The August data was revised downward slightly to 704,000 units. When we compare to September of 2020, which everyone knows was a banner year for housing and for lumber prices, this data is down 18% when it was 971,000 units 1 year ago. So let's quickly just look at the graphs right now, and I will explain some of these data sets and the reasoning behind them and the impact of the lumber prices and the housing data, so people can understand a little bit better what's happening in the market, at least at this time of year when normally, definitely construction activity and therefore lumber sales are starting to slow down. It wasn't like that last year. So far this year, it's been quite strong, but just now at the beginning of November, we're starting to see some weakness in the lumber prices. I mean, when I say weakness, I mean compared to what? Compared to the last 2 years when prices were super high, which is normal for the season. So the prognosis for housing is we don't know. And we're not going to know until more data comes out. However, the longer term picture, as I said before in my other videos about the housing starts, is that January 2022 is really expected to come out quite strong, as did the beginning of this year. So here's some graphs, and then I'll come back to explain a bit more. Okay, so here's a really good visual explaining what's happening in the market right now. Looking back to the second quarter of last year, 2020, that huge run-up that we're all familiar with now, and then sort of zigzagging along. That's the black line on this graph, which is the new home sales. The three colored lines are the basic dimension lumber prices for construction framing: Western spruce, Eastern spruce, and Southern pine. As you can see, pretty close correlation between when those lumber prices are going up and down and when the new home sales are going up and down. So now we have into the end of the summer some drops in the home sales, and of course a huge peak and then drop in the lumber prices, and a recovery showing the market is returning to some strength. But is it for 1 month or is it longer term? This one is the house prices, which is really surprising a lot of people. So the black line at the top is the new home prices median, ticking up and up, even before the COVID, as you can see that pop in again second quarter of last year. And these three colored lines are the same lumber prices that I just said for the previous graph. So a couple of things to note, and one is that I think something really important, that 74% of sales were homes that were still under construction or yet to be built. I've been talking about that for a couple of months. Usually it's around 65%. The supply of homes on the market is nice, is normal, of 5.7 months worth. But meanwhile, the price just keeps going up. It's up now 20%. So the median price of a new home in the US for September was $408,800, up from $390,000 in August. This graph is just showing that benchmark Western spruce 2x4 price, which is in the previous two graphs, on a year by year. So you can get an idea of how much of a difference we had, what we would call a normal year, the pink line, which is 2019. Last year, things really started to go funny. That's the yellow line. And then this year, the blue line. My goodness, what will happen next? Okay, so and a little bit more about the fundamentals behind why some of this data keeps going up. As I've said before, and as a lot of people know, the housing starts and the home sales, the home building and the real estate industry, generally speaking, goes on a 6 quarter or year and a half cycle, up and down. Just, with macroeconomic conditions, that's standard. We have, of course, seen some serious changes to society since spring of last year due to the COVID. And we also did know that there was an underpinning of strong demand looming as the millennial generation has now reached usual first-time home buyer age. And at the same time, North America, specifically the US, has been underbuilt for the past 10 years. The amount of new homes built was not enough to meet with the population. And so at this time where we have a surge in increased home buying, which is going to last about 15 years, as the first set of millennials is coming up on 35, and there's 15 years of people coming after them. And do remember that the millennials are the largest demographic right now. It's documented that they are the largest cohort of first-time home buyer. So, that kind of explains an increase, but what is up with the sharp increases and these, 14% levels, which is really quite powerful. And the basic reason is supply and demand. There's been constraints in the amount of home building that can happen due to problems getting building materials like lumber, problems getting workers, supply chain, which everybody's hearing about now. I was talking about it with forestry and lumber products a year and a half ago. Like I explain quite regularly, lumber is a forward indicator, leading indicator. When something like that happens, it first shows up in forest products. So we were having problems with rail cars and getting truck deliveries a year and a half ago, and now it's all you hear. The cargo ships, the record number of cargo ships off all the ports are up and down the North America coast, both coasts. But something really interesting that I'd like to share that I think explains quite a bit. Apart from all of that, the other constraint which the home builders have been talking about is difficulty in getting lots. And that's not new. We also knew that that was coming up, given how strong demand was. And it's a question, I think, of being flexible and paying more. If builders are willing to pay more for lots, and they do expect to get more for the building that they construct, then why not? However, let me share this with you. The CBRE, which is the Commercial Real Estate Services Group, and this is discussing industrial real estate, but the underlying reasons why there's an issue are the same as for residential. So there is a record high 410 million square feet under construction in the US right now. The important thing is that completions have been declining for the past 2 quarters in a row, and completion levels are now considerably lower than they were for the 5-year average. This kind of thing doesn't just come on and off in 1 quarter. So the issues for all building, whether it's large industrial complexes, apartment buildings, shopping malls, or houses, is looking, it looks rosy depending on where you're standing. But what I'm going to say is the number of buildings, the amount of construction activity is going to continue to increase. So here we are just at the beginning of November. The data that we have for the house prices and the home housing starts is for September. And the data that I have for my lumber prices is for October, to the end of October. So anyone looking for forward-looking information to tell you what is happening with the construction materials right now and what could be coming up in the next 6 weeks for the actual housing, click subscribe here. but actually go on my website. The link is in the caption, and go on the menu along the top to the subscribe link and fill out the form for a free sample of all 450 lumber prices. And you get an idea of the scope of the information that we provide. It's a dashboard with a lot of features, including graphs, tables that you can download the Excel file of all the data, comparing current to historical. That's where the lovely graphs that I put in my on my website and in my YouTube come from. And the market commentary. It's not just the price data, but is the reasons why the prices are changing. Things like inventory, sawmill order file, how's the log supply, what's happening with transportation, any problems with the weather. All these kind of things we find out every week for that week and publish it on Friday mornings for subscribers to have a look at.